Steam lifts off the turkey as my daughter shoves a contract across my plate. Sign now? My name pre-typed, pen uncapped, her husband already tallying my house. I slide it back. Chairs scrape. The door slams. The countdown begins. I set the table for 3, but only one plate would be touched. The iron tablecloth was smooth under my palms, the same faint sprig pattern Laura picked the year we said we'd stop buying whatever was trendy and buy what would last. I lined up the forks by habit, edge to edge, teeth aligned, then held the third in my hand a beat too long. The house settled like an old dog, one sigh in the ducts, a thrum from the heater, then quiet again. Wildfires ticked, turkey resting, cranberry set, shimmering. I set Laura's old teapot on a trivet so it wouldn't mark the cloth. The room smelled like orange peel and thyme, and I told myself that mattered. That care left a scent people could follow home. The doorbell didn't ring. My phone buzzed. Parking. Parking. Misguided later, it buzzed again. Daniel, traffic was a mess. I breathed, then put on the Christmas record Laura loved, the one that starts soft so you can still hear conversation. When I opened the door, Sophia hugged with one arm and kept the other clenched around her purse. Daniel stepped in like a realtor, eyes skimming the trim and the ceiling first. Smells like you cooked for a battalion, he said, grinning at the roasting pan as if it had overpromised. I cooked for my family, I said, cheek. Hi, Dad. Wilmington. We did the small talk, weather, a neighbor who'd put up lights that blinked like a migraine. Daniel wandered the living room, thumb-tapping his phone. He paused at Laura's photo and tilted it straighter, as if the house had been waiting for that exact adjustment. At the table, I pulled out their chairs. Sophia set her purse in the empty one, a little purse with a lot of structure, the kind that can stand on its own. I took the carving knife, turned it on the board to test the edge, and pressed my thumb to its spine. Daniel eyed the spread. You ironed the cloth. I did. He smiled without warmth. You do realize nobody inspects the seams at dinner. Unleash that's because I already did, I said, and laid the first slice of turkey with a little steam ribboning off it. We tried a toast. Sophia lifted water, not wine. To Dad, she said, to keeping traditions. Daniel clinked lazily, to efficiency. I carved, I passed, we ate. The record clicked softly between tracks. So, work? I asked. Fine, Sophia said. Busy. Daniel speared a bite and measured the room again. You still read at night with all the lights on? I read with one lamp, I said. He laughed. Looks like a runway from the street. Sophia set down her fork. Daniel, constrained. What? He said. I'm making conversation. It's called tradition, I said, and let the line sit exactly where it landed. I chewed, then wiped his mouth like he'd closed an argument. Just saying, some habits could evolve. Some should, I said, some shouldn't. Sophia looked at me, careful. We just worry you take on too much. I didn't cook worry, I said, I cooked dinner. It threw the potatoes and most of the green beans. Conversation broke down into shapes, her nodding, me offering, Daniel's phone flashing. The house kept sounding like it wanted to speak but couldn't find the word. I stood to refill tea. The kettle hissed. On the fridge, the magnet calendar caught my eye. HOA, Mature January, Jan 10, 7 p.m. I'd written it weeks ago to remind myself to ask about a cracked curb. I'd added T16 with a little arrow because I like knowing where I am on a line. Dad, Sophia said, you don't have to do so much. She gestured at the plates. This is a lot for one person. It isn't for one person, I said. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He turned it over so the screen faced the cloth and drummed his fingers on the table. 3 steady taps. We might need to cut out a bit early, he said. Her folks started without us. Sophia winced. We said we'd stop by. Unable you're here now, I said as if stating the obvious could anchor anything. They ate faster after that, like the meal had become a job. I kept the pace gentle, asked how the in-laws were, listened to a story about a neighbor's dog that had nothing to do with us. When the record side ended, the room didn't ask for another. Sophia stood first. She gathered her purse from the chair like a nurse lifting a patient. Dad, this was nice, she said, and sounded like it wasn't. Discharge the hallway mirror. We'll catch you soon, he said. At Christmas? I asked, half trying a joke too late. He smiled again. It is Christmas. At the door, Sophia hugged me with both arms this time and let her cheek rest against mine for a second longer than the first. You know we love you, she said quick, almost like an apology that hadn't earned its place. I know what love looks like, I said, and kept my tone even like a teacher correcting a paper without breaking the student. The lock clicked behind them, a small metal finality. I leaned my forehead against the wood, then turned back to the table. Steam had surrendered. The knife lay across the carving board like a line we'd all noticed and stepped over anyway. I lifted their plates, scraped what was left into a container, and covered the turkey like a sleeping thing. In the living room, the tree lights blinked in their slow pattern. On, off, as if practicing being noticed. I set a cup at the place across from mine out of habit, then picked it up and set it back down because habit is a kind of hope, and sometimes you need the repetition to believe yourself. Heart pulse. I had built a room that remembered us. Tonight it remembered me and no one else. I rinsed the glasses. I folded one corner of the tablecloth where a drop of gravy had landed and dabbed it with a towel until the stain faded to a ghost. The cloth still looked good. It would outlast nights like this. I turned the calendar page just enough to see January's grid and touched the square around the 10th. The ink had dried weeks ago. The square hadn't moved. It just waited. I turned off the lamp in the living room and left the kitchen one on for a while. The house didn't feel unsafe. It felt unoccupied by people who said they'd come. When I finally sat, I took my place at the head of the table and faced the empty chair that didn't know how to follow them out. It stayed where I put it. Daniel waited until the gravy cooled. He kept glancing at the living room clock like it owed him money. When he finally reached into his coat and pulled out a thick packet, the second hand moved past the 12. The digital stove display blinked, 7:59 p.m. as the papers met the tablecloth. Take just a property transfer, he said, laying the stack beside the cranberry. Makes everything easier to manage. Sophia's fork hovered. It's for your own good, Dad. I looked at the knife on the board, then at the crease the packet made in the cloth Laura chose for lasting. The pages were tabbed with cheery flags. My name was typed where a signature was supposed to go. The smell of orange peel turned thin. Not tonight, I said. Daniel smiled like he was humoring a child. We're only talking about signatures. It's not a big deal. It is if they're mine. He pushed the packet closer with 2 fingers. The tabs whispered. We're trying to save you headache. If something happens, he spread his hands. This keeps the house and accounts clean. Sophia looked at me as if asking permission to agree with him. We can help with bills, with the yard, everything. You're helping right now, Daniel added, by signing. I set down the carving knife and wiped my hands on a towel I didn't need. The towel came away clean. The air felt colder. Daniel, I said, you put a legal document on my table at Christmas dinner? He said, because we're here. Time is the one thing you don't get back. Time and a house, I said. He chuckled quick. We're not taking your house. Look like it's already leaving. He tapped the packet again. It's standard language. Standard for whom? He didn't answer. He pushed his chair back slightly, as if to widen his reach to the papers. Sophia's hand rested on the table, palm down, a wedding band bright under the lamp. I could see my face in the knife's polished spine, small and steady. The room had the kind of silence that tries to convince you it's reasonable. Here's what I hear, I said. Sign first. Understand later. Daniel shrugged. Or we come back with a notary this week and do it properly. Up to you. My good has my signature on it. Sophia's eyes flashed. Dad. 10 exchange. Daniel, it's just a property transfer. Me, not tonight, not ever. Sophia, we're protecting you. Me. Protecting means you ask before you write my name. Daniel picked up the knife, not by the blade. He's not reckless, but by the handle, as if he owned the room's tools too. He set it down again, exactly where it had been, like he wanted credit for precision. You leave lights on, he said. You forget to lock the side door. You're up at odd hours. Neighbors notice. This is how we keep things safe. I read at night. I lock my doors. What you're noticing is your opportunity. Soulful Dad, please, don't make this harder. I slid the packet back across the table, returned it to the angle it had arrived with, and smoothed the crease in the cloth. The paper kept the shape like a boot print after a fresh snow. I'm eating dinner, I said. You're doing paperwork, pick one. Daniel leaned in. We're both doing love. Disregard control, I said, calm. He sat back, the smile gone now. Fine, live alone. When you die, we'll come for the mess. Sophia flinched. Daniel. His chair scraped a jagged note across the floor. Sophia stayed seated a breath longer, as if her body remembered when staying had been easier. She rose, purse in hand, hesitating over the plate she'd barely touched. This is for your own good, she said softer. I've taught children for 38 years, I said. They know when a test is fair. This isn't. Daniel reached for his coat. We'll give you time to think. You just tried to steal it, I said. Sophia kissed my cheek without warmth. We love you. I nodded. I didn't argue with the word. Love deserved better than this evidence. Heart pulse, shame burned, resolve cooled into steel. At the door, Daniel paused. We'll call, he said. You'll try, I said. He opened the door. Cold air slipped in. I could hear someone's music from a car idling at the curb, drums steady like a clock. He stepped out first. Sophia looked back once, then followed him. The lock turned under my hand. I stood with my forehead on the wood a second longer than pride wanted, then returned to the table. I stacked the plates. I set the knife across the board. I folded the towel. The packet had wrinkled the cloth where it sat. The crease ran diagonal like a bad cut. I pressed it flat with my palm. It didn't smooth. I carried their plates to the sink and rinsed the edges. The cranberry left a small red comet on the porcelain that circled the drain twice before the water blurred it away. The house hummed. Somewhere a pipe ticked. The smell of thyme had faded into something like paper. I turned the stove display off. The living room lamp stayed on. I let it. Let someone look in and see light without company and decide what they wanted from that. And I sat at my place again. I put my hand on the fuse to lift. Across from me, the empty chair faced the untouched plate. Posture perfect, patience infinite. The door slammed earlier. The feast was abandoned. Take the chair, watch the plate. The mug trembled slightly as I set it down, the spoon rattling against the ceramic. Steam rose, blurring the corner of my laptop screen where the feed scrolled. Sophia's post glowed bright. Family first, heart. Underlined with photos from last night. Her husband raising a toast, her children in red sweaters, the roasted ham centered. My chair empty. Cropped out as if I had never cooked, never sat at the head of that table. Did 8:07 a.m. A fresh erasure, served with morning coffee. Meliors over comment. My fingers twitched but stilled. Daniel's text buzzed before I could move. Kirch. Nice pictures, huh? Me. Interesting edit. Daniel. World doesn't need grumpy faces. Carp. Me. Family includes the person who cooked. Makeshift smile tugged at me. Clapback delivered, soft and sharp. But the bruise landed anyway. The public stage was his arena now, curated and polished. The kettle shrieked again. At the same moment, another buzz. A message from a former student, years since I'd heard from him. Eli, Mr. H, could you tutor my nephew in January? Math's not his strong suit. Me, that's a long time since geometry class. Best teacher I had, he needs someone steady. Are you around? Me, send me the schedule, I'll see if I can help. Eli, thank you. He'll be grateful. Relinquids eased the sting. Someone still saw me as useful. A calendar ping echoed on my screen as I tentatively typed in the session. Small dignity against a larger slight. I leaned back, the kitchen clock ticking in rhythm with the laptop fan. Paved still smarted. My children's silence had moved from table to timeline, the humiliation wider now. My pulse steadied into resolve. They may crop me out online, but I wasn't vanishing. I hovered once more over comment, cursor blinking. Then I closed the laptop. Silence chosen, for now. Sunday light made the church bricks look warmer than the air felt. The ushers were still wrestling with the heavy front doors when Pastor Jennings caught my sleeve on the steps. "Thomas," he said gently, "how are you managing the house?" "Same way I've always managed it," I said, "with lists and light bulbs." He nodded, pastoral and vague. "If you ever need oversight, we have folks." "Folks with keys?" I asked. A hymn leaked through the doorway. Organ low, a choir entering on, "O come, let us adore him." I watched vapor peel from my breath. "Not keys," he said, "just care." "You can care without a clipboard," I said. He hesitated. "Sophia mentioned you've been up late. Lights on, that sort of thing." "She mentioned I read," I said. "Tell her I appreciate the literature review. Reach for something kinder. There's wisdom in letting family help. Help shouldn't need a signature first." His gaze flicked to the bulletin board. A corner of next month's calendar poked out under this week's handouts. A yellow half-sheet listed meetings in small type. I tilted my head and read the bottom line. "Ho-Hey meeting, Jan 10, 7 p.m., Terriers 14. "Thomas," he said softer, "we could sit down after service." "I'll come by," I lied. I stepped aside to let a deacon pass. He stopped instead, his hand warm through my coat. "Sir," he said, "is it true you, left something on the stove last week?" "No, before you ask, before you repeat." "I mean," someone said. "Someone who?" Into the sanctuary where the choir swayed, as if the lyric had the answer. "Just folks. Board should hear if a neighbor's at risk." "They should," I agreed. "Which neighbor?" Hurricanes, he couldn't meet my eye. The organ swelled. He patted my arm and went inside. Heart pulse. Shame stung, but the sting pointed to where to place the next step. Him and the draft of concern at the door, and walked 2 blocks to the pharmacy, the bell above the entrance giving me a small brass welcome. The counter smelled like rubbing alcohol and peppermint lip balm. The label printer chirped. "Morning, Mr. Grayson," said the pharmacist, a woman in her 40s with reading glasses perched up in her hair. Her name tag read A. Patel. "Picking up anything?" "Not today," I said. "I'd like to ask for something in writing." Her eyebrows lifted. "A brief note," I said, "that I keep my refills on schedule, that I ask questions before I take anything new, that I, follow instructions," she thought. "We can do a general adherence note," she said, "but it won't be a diagnosis. I'm not asking for one, just the parts you can see from your side of the counter." Cleanliness, already turning to the computer. "Give me your date of birth and a day or two. We'll put it on letterhead." A tech leaned around the partition. "Letters take 48 to 72 hours sometimes," she said. The receipt cutter snapped behind her. "Holidays slow us down." "That's fine," I said. "There's a meeting in 2 weeks." I didn't need to say which one. The town had only so many rooms where whispers got minutes. Patel slid a small notepad across the counter. "Write down what you wanted to emphasize. I'll keep it neutral." "Neutral is gold," I said and wrote. "On-time refills, questions logged, no confusion at counter." As I capped the pen, a mom I knew from the neighborhood drifted close with a bottle of children's cough syrup. She waited until the tech moved away. "You tutored my son," she said. "He passed algebra because you wouldn't let him quit." "Freezes his doing," I said. "Maybe," she said, "but people notice the right things." I took that with me like a vitamin you don't taste until an hour later. From the pharmacy, I crossed to Mr. Franklin's house. His porch had the same creak in the third board from the door. He opened before I could knock twice, sweater vest over a shirt that had been ironed harder than mine. "You picked the coldest day to come pitch me on drama." "I picked the day after my daughter pitched me on guardianship." He grimaced. "Come in then." His study smelled like paper and lemon oil. I set my folder on the edge of his desk but kept it closed. "I'm not here to dump a stack," I said. "I'm here to ask a question." "Ask it." "If I stand in a public room and read the rule that lets a member rebut, would you stand behind me?" He rubbed the bridge of his nose. Public rooms turn ugly. They make people perform. I don't perform, I said. I teach. He looked at me long enough to make sure I believed my own line. What would you present? Junction. I can show without a speech, I said. A screenshot. A video, a stamped receipt or two, a volunteer log. 2 minutes, then I sit. 2 minutes, he repeated as if testing the sound. No jabs? I won't need them, I said. Rumor jabs itself. He leaned back, the chair speaking in an old wood language. I hate drama. Say Redskins. So do I said. That's why we keep it brief. He nodded slow. I'll consider it, he said, on one condition. Name it. If the room turns into a circus, I sit down. I won't be bait. Greed. Folder. And keep that thing from multiplying. It won't, I said. It's a syllabus, not a complaint box. Text me what you plan to read. I'll mark it up. You will. Brushing me again. Thomas, no speeches about hurt. Those rooms eat feelings and burp noise. Backs first, I said, and the air bit. I pulled my collar up and walked home past yards still staging plastic reindeer. Inside my kitchen, I set a pen beside the empty cup at the table, like saving a place for the proof I'd started to gather. The house hummed, steady. On the fridge, the church bulletin corner I'd pocketed stared back from under a magnet. HOA meeting January 10 to 7 p.m. to the 14. I circled the date with the pen before it took its seat. Tay Family Tension Exchange. Brief by proxy. Pastor, there's wisdom in letting family help. Me. Help shouldn't need a signature first. Heart pulse. Dignity doesn't arrive in speeches. It arrives in steps you can show. I placed the folder on the table and left it closed. It would be heavier soon. For now, I let the pen keep watch. The doorbell rang twice, and then fists took over. The kind of hurried knock that wants the whole block to know there's urgency. I wiped my hands, crossed the hall, and opened to a man in a branded jacket, holding a slim tool roll. Said, "Safety check," he said. "Holds." Connect stood on the walkway, smiling like a supervisor. "Quick look around, Thomas. Stove, locks, that sort of thing." Clang. "Who are you?" I asked the man in the jacket. "Locksmith," he said. "I just need permission to." "You don't have it," I said. Breached his palms. "For everyone's peace of mind. Arrives when my boundaries do." He nodded toward the deadbolt. "We can at least make sure it's operating right." "All back?" "It operates fine," I said, and I turned it slowly so they could hear the metal meet home. The thud carried. The locksmith glanced at Daniel. "Sir," said lightly. "That's a headline waiting to happen." "Keys fail," I said. "At least get the term right." Family Tension Exchange. Restarted. "Let him in, Thomas. This is just a safety check." Me. "Safety starts with consent, not with your locksmith." Daniel. "You're being difficult." Me. "I'm being the owner." Daniel. "People are watching." Me. "Then let them see me say no." Two porch neighbors were watching, Mrs. Nguyen from across the street and the young guy with the pit mix who jogs at odd hours. They had the polite half-concern of people who want to help and don't want to get dragged. "Everything okay, Mr. Grayson?" Mrs. Nguyen called. "Everything's locked," I said loud enough for the sidewalk. Daniel brightened, playing to the small audience. "We're just making sure he's safe." "By bringing tools to my door?" I said. The jogger shifted his leash. "Board should hear about this," he muttered, mostly to himself, but the words crossed the hedges anyway. Daniel's smile faltered. "We can reschedule," he told the locksmith. "No need," I said, and closed the door the last inch. The deadbolt settled with a second clear claim. Heart pulse. Relief hardened into resolve. A lock that holds is a promise I still get to keep. I stayed in the entry a moment, listening to their shoes on the walk. When I opened again, the locksmith was halfway to his truck. Daniel lingered, hands in coat pockets like he might pull out another form. "Tell Pastor Jennings I'll see him Sunday," he called. "He thinks talking would help." "I bet he does," I said. "Maybe he won't after he hears you wouldn't let a simple safety check happen." "Maybe he'll hear I asked for consent," I said, and didn't get it. A voice from the sidewalk. "Mr. Grayson?" Lynette, my next-door neighbor, held her phone like a delicate bird. "Do you have a second?" Bob's eyes cut toward her, calculating the angle of any new witness. He adjusted his scarf and drifted 2 steps away, pretending to text. Lynette's voice lowered. I took a short video the other day. I wasn't snooping. I was worried. Beck. About what? Shuffled her screen and held it so only I could see. In the shaky frame, my kitchen window glowed. The camera found Sophia, coat on, purse slung, slipping out my side door. Behind her on the counter, a taper candle burned, flame steady. The clip panned and a time overlay sat in the corner, one simple code the size of a postage stamp. I filmed because the light looked wrong, Lynette said. I called out. She was gone before I could ask. For today was for holding the line. But this was a stitch I could use later to keep the story from splitting. May I ask for a copy another time, I said. No rush. I'm not trying to drag you into anything you don't want. Oolong relieved, yes. I just wanted you to know it exists. Thank you, I said, and let the word land with the weight I meant. Daniel took 2 casual steps back toward us. Everything good, neighbor? Fleeing, Lynette pocketed her phone. Everything's fine, she said, and gave me a small look that meant, I'll stand as far as I can stand. Daniel turned his smile back on me. You sure about skipping the check? People care, they talk. They do, I said, and they remember who brings tools to whose door. He rolled his shoulders. Pastor wants to talk Sunday, don't be late. He said it like a summons, not an invitation. I'll be on time to my own plans, I said. He started down the walk. The locksmith's truck coughed alive at the curb. I closed the door and leaned my forehead against it until the engine noise receded. In the kitchen, the fridge sticky note waited where I'd left it. T-12, practice 2. I set an alarm on my phone. Practice makes 2 minutes feel like 1. Professional key from the bowl by the door and laid it on top of the folder at the empty seat. Boundary over performance. The metal winked in the light like a small oath. I washed my hands, habit, ritual, sanctuary, then set water on for tea. The kettle would scream soon. Until then, the house held its breath the way a classroom does before a test. Quiet, heavy, ready. At the edge of the tablecloth, the crease from the contract still faintly traced a diagonal. I smoothed it with my palm and watched it refuse to disappear. Some marks only fade when you lay better lines over them. The phone buzzed once more, a calendar reminder that said simply, rehearse. Good, I would. Outside, a car door shut, then Daniel's voice, pitched louder for the street than for me. Pastor wants to talk Sunday. Don't be late. I didn't open the door. I let the line hang in the air like a tag on a new shirt, something you plan to remove when the time is right. The potluck hall smelled like sugar, glaze, and bleach. Crock pots lined 2 folding tables, lids clacking when someone went heavy on the ladle. I tucked my folder under my arm like a shield and slipped past the sign taped crooked on the door. HOA meeting, Jan 10, 7 p.m., T through 10. At the sign-in table, a volunteer in a sequined reindeer sweater looked up. Name? Male. Thomas Grayson. Her pen hovered. Do you need a ride home later, Mr. Grayson? I drove, I said. Okay, she said, like a doctor marking patient declines anesthesia. Addie, the PA, popped and squealed once, warning us who would have the room later. I moved along the wall where the light was softer and the opinions traveled slower. Only knew as Glenn with the vintage truck leaned close. Agenda says comments only next week, he muttered. 2 minutes tops. Be a lifetime if you use them right, I said. Bilingual Beal's strict, Glenn said. He'll cut you at 1:59 if you breathe wrong. Then I'll breathe on my time, I said. He nodded at the poster. Better rehearse. I am. Look, that meant I hope you're right and faded into the line for deviled eggs. I had just found a chair against the wall when Daniel walked in carrying nothing but a smile. Sophia followed with a casserole and an expression she could sell as concern to anyone who didn't know its ingredients. Daniel found me first. He always had a nose for a room. Thomas, he said, as if calling roll. Glad you made it out. I live 8 blocks away, I said. He clapped the nearest guy on the shoulder and raised his voice a hair too high for a casual greeting. We're lucky to have neighbors who look out for each other, he said to the air, especially when some neighbors are overwhelmed. Overwhelmed by what? I asked, keeping my tone low enough that he had to step closer. He didn't. He turned slightly, angling himself so the half-dozen people in reach could catch the line he wanted to throw. Stoves left on, lights blazing at all hours, he said. Unsafe for the block. Family tension exchange. Name one fire report with my address. Daniel. We're trying to stop the first one. Me. Then stop lighting candles in my kitchen. We're worried. Me. You're performing worry. There's a difference. A few heads turned. Paper plates rustled. Someone laughed and coughed, embarrassed by the sound's shape. Sophia set her casserole on the table with a careful thunk and took my elbow, as if steering a patient away from a nurse's station. Let's not do this here, she said, eyes wet enough to register from 3 tables away. Where would you like to do it? I asked. You've done it everywhere else. Pasheen spread his hands in a magnanimous gesture people mistake for humility. We just want what's safe, he said again, for the whole block. Then be precise, I said. Bulleted incidents, please. Please, which is not a bullet. It's a ribbon someone ties around the part of the story they want to sell. Across the room, the mic squealed again. Beale, the HOA chair, tapped it with 2 fingers until it behaved. Neighbors, he said, smiling like a usher. Thanks for coming out on a holiday weekend. Daniel's voice slipped under it, low but audible. It's unsafe, he told a pair of women from my street. He leaves things on. I stepped in tighter. Quote your source, I said, and if it's yourself, show your work. One of the women glanced between us, measuring. The other whispered, boards should just hear it, in the way people choose to feel responsible without choosing to be brave. From proof, not feelings, said a man behind her, Glenn's trucker hat visible over the crowd. The sentence landed the way a gavel does, when everyone was pretending not to need one. Daniel's smile thinned. We'll have plenty for the board, he said. Good, I said. So will I. Peeled down at my folder. Props? Receipts, I said. The PA squeal became a tone as the mic found its level. I considered how much longer to stand in the open. Every line you speak in a room like this has to do 2 jobs. Defend your ground and not become their bait. I'd done enough of the first. The second is where I've always earned my pay. My heart pulse. Humiliation warmed my face. Resolve cooled it back into a shape I recognized. I nodded to Bill like we were old friends who both liked rules. He nodded back like a man who liked power more. I turned toward the door. Sophia moved with me. We can talk with Pastor tomorrow, she said, privately. Privacy ended when your husband started rehearsing with an audience, I said. She flinched. He's trying to help. Then tell him to use verbs and facts, I said, not adjectives. Near the exit, a neighbor brushed my shoulder with a plate balanced in one hand. She lowered her voice. Bring proof, not feelings, she echoed, barely looking at me, as if saying it too loud would count as taking sides. I planned to, I said. Outside, the night air had the kind of bite that keeps a person awake on the walk home. I adjusted the folder under my arm, felt its lightness as a promise it would not keep. Take at the door, someone taped a second copy of the Jan 10, T10 poster next to the first, straighter this time. I didn't need it to be. I only needed it to hold. I stepped into the chill and let the door close behind me. Mr. Franklin's study always smelled like lemon oil and old paper, a classroom that had retired but still insisted on posture. He waved me in with 2 fingers and pointed to the guest chair, the one that squeaked in a single note when you settled too quickly. I lowered in slowly and set my folder on the edge of his desk without opening it. I'm not here to dump a stack, I said. I'm here to lay out a plan. That's what I was afraid of, he said, but his eyes were brighter than his voice. 2 minutes or less, no theatrics. Facts first, then the room. He lifted a pencil like a conductor. All right, Professor, what are your exhibits? Simple. I held up a hand and counted off without touching the folder. 1. A screenshot that shows how I was cropped out of family. 2. A short video, clean chain, that contradicts unsafe elder. 3. 1 or 2 neutral attestations that I manage my life without confusion. 4. The rule that allows a member to rebut with exhibits, read aloud before anything else on the desk in a quiet metronome. Nothing inflammatory. Nothing that invites a brawl. I'm not auditioning, I said. I'm clarifying. He leaned back and let the chair express its single note. You know what public rooms do? People walk in with their outside voice already on. I'll keep mine in the case and use it only when necessary. Corner of his mouth moved. You always did file your tone alphabetically. The phone on my hip buzzed. I glanced down. Sophia. I set it face up on the desk so he could see the name and tapped speaker. Dad, she said, breathy with urgency that carries well. Can we keep this private? Pastor will talk with us.
We don't need the neighborhood.
We already have the neighborhood, I said. You brought them. Please, she said. Daniel is worried you'll be embarrassed. Mr. Franklin raised his brows at me. I kept my voice steady. Embarrassment only hurts if I'm wrong. Don't take this to a meeting, she said. It'll look like you're angry. I am organized, I said. There's a difference. Then let us help. You keep using that word, I let a beat pass. Help shouldn't need a signature first. Her breath caught. Dad! I have to go, I said and tapped the screen. The call ended. The silence stepped back into the room like a guest who'd been waiting in the hallway. Mr. Franklin twirled the pencil once and set it down. You're not wrong, he said, but wrong people like to be loud. I'll bring paper, I said. Paper keeps blood honest. There's your line. Use it once. I will. Show me the order. And trace the folder close on the desktop with a finger. Open with the bylaw citation, not argument, instruction. Then a single sentence per exhibit as it appears. The room gets to see, not be told. I close with one sentence about boundaries. No adjectives, he said. Lee nouns. He stood and walked to the wall calendar, the one with birds and blank squares, where he wrote only in block letters. January sat there, clean. He uncapped a marker and circled. Jan 10, 7 p.m. Then, like a coach knowing exactly what his player needed to feel the floor underfoot, he added, T through 8. The ink bled slightly into the paper, a halo that made the number look like it mattered. 2 minutes, he said. I'll stand behind you. 2 minutes only. The moment this turns into a circus, I sit down and I'm gone. Understood. Demolished, at me for a long breath. Say it back. Prejudice. If the room turns ugly, you sit, I said. I keep it civil or I lose your back. Good. I took out my phone and snapped a quick photo of the circled square. Just for me, a promise pinned in pixels. I didn't need the picture to be proof. I needed it to be a rehearsal. Go home, he said. Practice with a stopwatch, then practice without it and stop at the same place. I've been teaching teenagers to land in under 2 minutes for 38 years, I said. I can cut anything but truth. He almost smiled again. You cut truth into pieces small enough to swallow. Same skill. At his door, he paused me with one more note. Do not reply to bait. If you hear the word unsafe, you say receipt. If you hear confused, you say timestamp. If you hear family, you say nothing and let the room remember how words work. I'll bring nouns, I said. They can bring adjectives. He opened the door and the porch greeted me with its familiar third-board creak. Cold air moved across my face like a reprimand I didn't mind receiving. Somewhere down the block, a choir was practicing in a living room, voices layering a hymn without arguing about who sang first. At home, the kitchen waited with its good stubborn quiet. I slid the empty cup away from its seat and replaced it with the folder, a piece of blue tape labeling the spine, Jan 10. The tape wrinkled and I smoothed it flat the way you do a child's collar before a school picture. I set the stopwatch on top and clicked it once. The seconds started their neat march. I recited under my breath, not the words, but the cadence. Read the rule, 1 line per exhibit. Rest the voice, close the book. The phone buzzed again, Daniel this time. I let it buzz through to voicemail. His messages always sounded like he'd practiced them in a mirror, which meant they never changed. I thumbed the stopwatch and stopped at 1:56. Good. 4 seconds to breathe without giving them any to take. Fiberglass tension exchange. Speaker. Sophia. Keep it private. Me. Privacy ended when you made it public. Sophia. We can help. Me. Help shouldn't need a signature first. Heart pulse. Resolve is just shame that learned a better job. Watch. The house settled, the heater ticked, and the pen I'd left yesterday kept its seat beside the folder like a quiet usher waiting for a crowd to behave. And the kitchen light, I could still see the circled date in my head, bright as a stage cue. I planned to enter on time and exit on my own. Bullied what it turns ugly, I sit down, Mr. Franklin had said. I repeated it once, aloud, so the room would hear the condition with me. Then I picked up the stopwatch again. It's quiet like a coat the town hadn't taken off yet. The grocery's automatic doors parted with a tired sigh, and warm air met the chill. Raj raised a hand from behind the express lane, the scanner beep punctuating his wave. Mr. Grayson, you're out early. The resolutions, I said, and I've got a favor to ask. He leaned on the counter. Shoot. Few small truths on paper. Could you draft a brief note just that I price check, ask about substitutions, and haven't seemed confused at your counter? Raj's head tilted, not confused. Calculating kindness. We can keep it factual. No diagnoses, obviously. Came for. He nodded. Give me a couple days. I'll put it on letterhead. Selfish, the scanner chirped again. He bagged a woman's ginger tea and slid me a sticky note. Write the bullet points you want emphasized. I'll keep it neutral. Neutral as gold, I said, and jotted the 3 lines. Tangled. On my way out, a cartwheel squeaked in a rhythm that matched my pulse. Mrs. Bell shuffled in with a canvas bag on her arm. Thomas, you helped me sort my mail last week. You did most of it, I said. She patted my sleeve. We'll be at the meeting. Don't let them talk over you. I teach for a living, I said. I know how to hold the room. Good, the door chimed, and she disappeared into the warm. Outside, my phone buzzed. Take, Daniel. People are worried. Me. Have them worry about their sources. Knocking. You're proving my point. Me. Proving requires evidence. Try again. Heart pulse. Small truths, carried steadily, outweigh rumors. I crossed the square to the bank. The lobby smelled faintly of floor polish and the fake pine they'd refused to take down yet. A ticket machine burped out 823. I sat under a framed photograph of a bridge that pretended this town was bigger than it was. The assistant manager appeared with a clipboard and the kind of smile that makes policy sound like common sense. Happy New Year, she said. How can we help? I need a letter confirming I make in-person transactions and that there have been no issues with my account handling. No balances, no numbers, just presence and process. She considered. We can do a customer account habits letter. It goes through compliance. How long? Swallowing a couple of days. Holiday backlog makes it closer to a week. She winced like she hated delivering weather. We'll try to rush, but I can't promise before the 9th. I nodded. If it lands on the 10th, it still lands. She tapped her clipboard. Will include staff initials. No account numbers printed. Perfect. Windshield buzzed again. I didn't look. The bank's soft music filled the gap, piano doing its best impression of calm. The manager slid a form across the counter. I skimmed the header and signed where the X asked nicely. She stapled the request to a pale yellow routing sheet. We'll call when it's ready, she said. If you don't hear by the 8th, call me. I'll rehearse anyway, I said. Rehearse? 2-minute remarks, I said. It's a long story with short sentences. Shameful for real at that. A good way to tell any story. Back home, the kitchen clock clicked like a metronome that wanted to be taken seriously. The folder labeled Jan 10 sat where the empty cup used to. I set the stopwatch on top, thumbed it once, and practiced aloud to the refrigerator. Because it's the one appliance that absorbs pressure without breaking. Bylaw 4.3 allows a member to rebut. Exhibit A, screenshot timestamp the morning after dinner, caption, family first. Exhibit B, short video to clarify a candle that wasn't mine. Exhibit C, neutral attestations, grocery and bank. Exhibit D, volunteer log. That's it. Thank you. I stopped the watch at 1:54. Good, breathing room. The phone pinged a reminder in the same breath. HOA meeting, T9, rehearsed 2 o'clock. I set the alarm. The room settled around the sound like a classroom, accepting there would be a quiz. The second buzz came with Daniel's name again. Daniel, don't embarrass yourself. Pishin, embarrassment only hurts if I'm wrong. Configured, you're making it public. Me, you did. He switched tactics. Daniel, Sophia's at church. Pastor says he'll meet us. Forging. Me. I'll meet the board. Silence. Then 3 dots, then nothing. Good. Let him practice without an audience. I made tea. Steam fogged the corner of the Jan 10 label and cleared. The tabletop still held a faint diagonal from the contract packet. I traced it with my finger, then laid my notes over it. Better lines. At the bank again in my head, the assistant manager's tone returned. Polite apology, wrapped around policy. If the letter cut it close, it would still carry weight if the initials showed. I pictured a hand signing mine into existence, not out of pity, but because I'd asked correctly. The stopwatch ticked quietly while I washed a plate. I dried it and used the towel to smooth the blue tape on the folder. It held. The house wore its quiet well. It was the kind of quiet that knows the difference between retreat and planning. I picked up the phone to set one more rehearsal alarm and saw Daniel had tried a voice call instead of a text. I let it go to voicemail. He always sounded best when typed. Take. When the kettle clicked off, I poured and took a sip hot enough to sting. It cleared my head. On the counter, I left a small note for myself. Grocer plus bank letters, call Thu. It was a thing I could do, and doing it would keep my hands from any other mischief. As I was putting the pen down, the phone lit. A number I didn't recognize. I let that go too. Anyone who mattered could leave a message. I slid the stopwatch back into my palm and ran the words again. Facts first, then the room. The tea cooled, the house didn't. Then I walked back to the bank to drop a thank you card I'd already written. Old teacher habit. The manager met me at the vestibule door with a practiced nod. "We'll do our best," she said. "It may cut close." "Close still counts," I said. She held the door as if she could help time behave. "We'll call as soon as it's printed." I stepped back onto the sidewalk, the sky practicing a gray that promised nothing and kept it. Uncertainty settled on my shoulders like a light coat, noticeable, not crushing. The living room smelled faintly of old carpet cleaner and coffee. Lynette tapped her phone, angling the screen toward me. The video played, Sophia pacing on the porch, raising her voice, me standing still with my hands at my sides. No edits, no clever cuts, just the scene as it was. I hit record the moment she shouted, Lynette said. I haven't touched it since. From the other room, her husband called out over the hum of the TV. "Don't get dragged in, Lynette. You hear him? We don't want to be in a feud." "I don't want a feud either," I said evenly. "I just need truth preserved. First names only, if I must use any names at all." Tobaccos hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but promise me you'll keep it civil." "I promise," I told her. "If they insist on story, I'll bring the uncut scene." She opened the phone's gallery. "Here, file name, duration." "Show it." But irreversible in my glasses. IMG 2274, 241. That was enough. She tapped share, and we watched the progress bar creep until it landed on my USB drive. The little icon blinked. Proof locked. "You want me to say something?" Lynette asked. "Just one line," I said. Asbestos phone's mic, voice steady. "I filmed. No edits." The file and her voice were captured, chain intact. Albuquerque. I slid the USB into the folder on my table, the one with the empty seat. As I packed up, my phone buzzed. A voicemail alert glowed on the screen. I played it. Sophia's voice poured out, falsely sweet. "Dad, I passed by your house. It looked chaotic, unsafe. We need to talk." Unhailed slowly. Narratives bend, playback doesn't. Her hand in a half wave, then lowered it. "Just don't make it worse for us." "I won't," I said. "You've done enough already." Outside, the dusk was thick, the porch light humming faintly. I walked to the car, pocket heavy with the USB. For the first time in weeks, I held something the spin couldn't twist. But Sophia's voice still lingered, waiting for its next turn. I laid the printout on top of the folder like a badge, subject line clean, time stamped in the corner where even a nervous hand couldn't smudge it. Jan 3, 3:41 p.m. Agenda confirmation, public comments, 2-minute cap. The paper clicked under my knuckle. Sat on the sofa edge, elbows on knees, the way a good teacher watches a senior deliver an oratory. Again, he said. Strip the adjectives. 9:18 I started. Bylaw 4.3 permits a member rebuttal. Prestigious, he said. Not permits, allows faster. 3 allows a member rebuttal. Exhibit A, screenshot dated the morning after Christmas, caption family first. Exhibit B, brief video clarifying the candle and who left it lit. Exhibit C, neutral attestations, grocery and bank, pending but noted. Exhibit D, volunteer log, signed. Thank you. He held up a hand. Cut brief, cut neutral. The items prove themselves. I shaved the words and ran it again. He nodded once. Paper keeps blood honest, he said. Say it one time, then sit. One time, I said. He glanced at the wall calendar and tapped the square with the side of his pencil. 5 days. The sound was a metronome. You don't need volume, you need cadence. My voice won't carry the room, my cadence will. Good. He stood. Walk once around the block. Call me if you're tempted to add a flourish. I'll leave the flourishes to the folks selling casseroles, I said. He let himself out. The door closed with the soft authority of a well-fit latch. I clipped the stopwatch to the folder tab, set the printout square, and breathed until the room matched my lungs. The phone lit. Daniel. I let it buzz twice, then swiped. Suppressing. Spare yourself, he said without preface. Sign guardianship, avoid a scene. I don't sign things I don't need, I said. Abolish this isn't about control, he said. It's optics. You show up, you look stubborn, embarrassing. Public embarrassment only hurts if I'm wrong. You'll regret the room. Regret is cheaper than surrender, I said, and I keep receipts. He changed keys. Pastor says he'll sit down with us. He can sit down anywhere he likes, I said. I'll be standing. Thomas? He said. First name suddenly intimate. People already think. Surge people to the room, I said, and bring specifics with them. Silence, I could hear tires whispering on wet pavement somewhere, an entire street minding its own business better than we were. Last chance, he said. Last chance for what? To avoid making this ugly. Ugly arrived with a contract at Christmas, I said, and let the sentence rest. I'll see you on the 10th. He breathed like he wanted to put the air back in my mouth. You'll regret the room, he said again, lower. Then I'll regret it on the record. I ended the call. My hands shook once and then remembered itself. Heart pulse. Fear stood at the door, but cadence answered first. Tega clicked the stopwatch and stood in front of the cold fireplace as if it were a lectern. Bylaw 4.3 allows a member rebuttal, I began. Exhibit A. I lifted an empty palm. The point was the rhythm, not the prop. Screenshot dated the morning after Christmas. Caption, family first. Exhibit B. Short playback clarifies a candle left by someone else. Exhibit C. Letters cued confirming ordinary competence. Exhibit D. Volunteer log signed and dated. Paper keeps blood honest. Thank you. 1:56. I could feel the 4 spare seconds like money in a pocket I didn't plan to spend. The printout on the folder winked in the lamplight, that small corner timestamp serving as the only clock I needed to show anyone. Jan 3, 3:41 p.m. I slid the paper flush, squared the stack, and closed the folder like a shield coming to rest on an arm. Trembling tension exchange, phone. Daniel. Sign guardianship, avoid a scene. Me. I don't sign things I don't need. Daniel, you'll regret the room. Regret is cheaper than surrender. Daniel. People already think. Me. Bring them and bring specifics. The living room settled into the kind of quiet that pays attention. Outside, dusk practiced looking like evening. I walked to the wall calendar, tapped the square myself, and said, T5, aloud so I could hear the number become a word. I set a rehearsal alarm, then another for the morning. The phone buzzed, little mechanical heart keeping time with mine. I tried the speech again, softer, imagining the hum of a projector and the dry cough of someone in the back who didn't know they'd come to change their mind. Safeguards, I let Franklin's line live where it belonged. Paper keeps blood honest. I said it once and swallowed the echo. The phone lit with Daniel's name again. I declined the call and set the device face down, the way you do with a stack you've graded and don't plan to reopen. Alternating the stopwatch back to the folder, thumbed start, and let it run while I stood still, listening to the house do the human work of keeping quiet. Daniel's threat lingered in the room like a smell that won't name itself. I let it linger. Then I clicked stop and started from the top. The Veterans Center's loading dock breathed out heat every time the service door swung, a tired lung behind cinder block. I hoisted a second bag of donated coats onto the rolling rack. Lila clicked a pen with the precision of someone who trusts clipboards more than speeches. "You're a machine today, Mr. Grayson," she said. "I grade myself on hangers straight and sleeves out," I said, shaking the dust from a peacoat that remembered cigarettes. She flipped the volunteer ledger to a fresh line. "Sign here, start and stop. I'll add the total. The actual time," I said. "People tend to round away the truth." "Then let's be exact." She wrote neat and plain. January 4, 4:18 p.m. to 5:42 p.m. The ink shone before it settled. She initialed the margin. "You keep the copy. The original stays with us," I said. "Let paper speak for me." From the pad and handed it over. The paper rasp sounded like a small verdict. I slid the copy into a clear sleeve and into my folder. It felt heavier by the ounce. A good weight. Text. "Bluffle Sophia set up a mixer tonight. Come. Clear the air." I clear air with windows. I'll pass. "Daniel, people will think you're unstable." "Me, paper looks better than rumor." Lila noticed my phone. "Trouble?" "Optics invitations." She capped the pen. "Optics melt in daylight. You want me to stamp this with the time?" "You already did, in ink." She smiled. That I did. We hung the final row. A volunteer snapped a picture for the center's bulletin, but stayed on hands and coats, not faces. Someone started coffee. The smell threaded through the draft. I checked the ledger copy again, not for doubt, but for calm. The numbers were ordinary, the best kind. Outside, the sky had gone the color of a dull coin. My phone chimed a push banner. Pre-clear window, T5, T1. Submit by T, 1:10 a.m. Knife at the clock. I saved the banner to the brain, not the folder. One document per chapter is enough to keep a story honest. On the sidewalk, a group photo posed behind craft cocktails and a string of lights. Sophia's mixer was 2 storefronts down, a soft show with a hard agenda. Daniel peeled away from the door before I reached the corner, pacing toward me with the smile he irons before events. "Let's make this easy," he said. "Come in for 5 minutes, wave, people relax when they see you relaxed." "I don't relax on command," I said. "It helps the story," he tried. "Which story?" "Neurological? The one where you're cooperative." "I'm already cooperative," I said, patting the folder. "With facts." Tepped closer, voice a half tone under the traffic. "You keep pushing this meeting. It'll look like you want a spectacle." "It'll look like I want a record. Sophia's trying to keep this private." "Privacy ended when your contract hit my table." He glanced back at the glass where faces arranged themselves like theater-goers picking sides. "You're going to regret skipping this." "I don't attend rehearsals for other people's lines," I said. He exhaled a laugh without humor. "You do realize optics matter." "Breached." "They do," I said. "That's why I choose daylight." He glanced at the folder. "What is that anyway? Props?" "Receipts," I said, and the word did the work I needed. He returned to the door with a hand on the handle, then paused, turning for a parting shot. "Be civil at the meeting, Thomas." "I plan to be," I said. 2 minutes of it. Heart pulse. I want my competence to arrive like a receipt. Quiet, incontrovertible, time-stamped. At home, I put the folder in the empty chair the way you save a seat for a friend who actually shows. The stopwatch rested on top. The veteran's log wrote in its sleeve, a small rectangle of calm among bigger items. I breathed once, then twice, the way you do before an exam you've already studied for. The phone vibrated on the table. An email flashed from Beale. "Echa. Reminder, media not submitted by T, 1 will not run." The subject line wore its authority like a badge. The period at the end of the sentence felt like a low door frame a tall man keeps hitting. Tia tapped it open and let my eyes sit on the sentence until it was less threat than instruction. Pre-clear, T-1, by 10 o'clock a.m. I pictured the clock face, not the digital, because hands make stakes feel more human. I set tomorrow's alarm. Then I pressed a strip of blue tape on the folder where the log sleeve poked its corner out and wrote, Log 1-4. It wasn't for anyone else. It was for the part of me that likes to see the line I'm walking. The house held still. Even the heater seemed to pause to listen for whatever came next. KG, outside, laughter from the mixer leaked down the block, soft in shape for the people inside. I left my porch light off, let theirs do the shining. The phone buzzed again. Daniel, mixer ending soon. You sure? I let it blink out. I had already answered. I set the stopwatch on the folder and clicked it once, not to rehearse, just to hear the tick start again. A teacher's trick. Sometimes a sound is enough to keep a promise moving. The kettle clicked. I poured tea and took a sip too hot. It cleared my head. Another buzz, HOA, Beal again. I read it twice to be sure there wasn't a friendlier second line. There wasn't. Media not submitted by T1 will not run. The words held their ground. So would I. The HOA office lived in the back half of a municipal building that smelled like floor wax and old toner. A bell on the counter gave one polite ding when I pressed it, the kind of sound that asks you to be reasonable. Mrs. Ruiz appeared from a door marked Files, glasses on a chain. Can I help you, sir? Yes, I said, setting my folder down and keeping my voice classroom calm. Bylaw 4.3 allows a member rebuttal that includes exhibits, if pre-cleared. I'm here to pre-clear a short video and a still image. Fleeing along a laminated sheet from under the counter. USB only, MP4 preferred, 2-minute limit, chair's discretion on playback. USB, MP4 under 2 minutes, I repeated, and slid the drive across. There's also a still file, is a single-page PNG, escorted in a little gray box that ate the drive with a plastic click. Her screen blinked. We mirror, scan for malware, and tag. Her fingers tapped. Here we go. Lynette, clip MP4, length 148, candle still, PNG. You want both considered? Misogyn. She nodded businesslike. We don't guarantee playback. Chair has final call. Microscopic. I understand. This locks the door so it can't be closed later. Her mouth ticked at the corner. That's one way to put it. She stamped a small receipt square with a purple pad. The stamp left its mark in clean block letters. T4. She wrote, media received, and initialed. Keep this. If anyone asks why you're allowed to plug in, you show it. I tucked the receipt into a sleeve and then into the folder like it was a fragile bird. The bell dinged again as someone came in behind me. I stepped to the side so they could see the counter, not my business. TA, chair can still cap you at 2 minutes total, she added. Eyes kind but not soft. Even with exhibits, don't talk past your proof. I won't, I said. I'm not loud, I'm legible. She slid the USB back across the counter. We keep the mirrored copy here. Bring yours Tuesday so you control the chain. Thank you, I said, for the mirror and the warning. Outside, the winter air had teeth. My phone buzzed. Auto, media received, T-4. I let the line glow on the lock screen a second longer than necessary. Little clocks matter. At the bank, the lobby was half asleep. The assistant manager recognized me and waved me to her desk. We pulled 2 ATM stills from last month, she said, laying pages face down so numbers didn't flash. We initialed bottom right, no account details printed as requested. She lifted a corner just enough for me to catch the initials without chasing any digits. Chain lives with you, she said. We'll verify in person if asked. That's all I need, I said. I slid the pages into a manila folder marked stills and then into my larger one. Everything in its lane. On the drive home, the voicemail icon waited. I tapped speaker and let my car hear it too. Sophia's voice. Dad, Pastor says we should have coffee. Private. You're turning this into a show. Please stop. A pause. I hate seeing you like this. Ramifications and stared at my hands on the wheel. Like what? I said to no one. The phone didn't answer. Heart pulse. They call it a show. When you stand where everyone can see you. I call it a classroom with better lighting. Back in my kitchen, I clipped a printout of Bylaw 4.3 to the folder like a place card at the empty seat. The T4 receipt peered out from its sleeve. On the counter, the stopwatch lay where I'd left it. I clicked it and spoke to the refrigerator again, trimming wherever my own wind tried to sell an adjective. Bylaw 4.3 allows rebuttal with exhibits, pre-cleared. Exhibit A, screenshot dated the morning after Christmas. Caption family first. Exhibit B, video playback, 1 minute 48. Clarifies a candle left by someone else. Exhibit C, letters cued and volunteer log signed. Exhibit D, still image, initialed, if time permits. Paper keeps blood honest. Thank you. 153. Breathing room remained, thin as the edge of a card. I set the stopwatch down. The phone pinged. Auto, media received. T4, again. The auto email that systems send because people forget. I didn't mind being reminded of the parts that work. Prejudice from Daniel pulsed and disappeared. I let it. Back to the HOA office with a question that had been worrying the edge of my mind. The bell announced me again. Mrs. Ruiz looked up, surprised to see the same folder twice in an hour. One more thing, I said, holding up the T4 slip. If there's a projector failure, can I hold the receipt on the mic so the room knows the failure isn't mine? You can state you pre-cleared, she said. Chair may object to props. I'll state it, I said, no props. She nodded. Good. And? One teacher to another? I smiled. Retired. Keep your temper off the record, she said. I've kept it off records and on rubrics for 38 years. I tapped the receipt. This time I'm just grading the procedure. On my way out, a man in a windbreaker asked the clerk about tree trimming fines. The ordinary business of a neighborhood continued around me like river water, cool and indifferent. At home, I boiled water and set the folder at the empty seat. The bylaw printout stood there like a name tag. I thought of Laura, then thought of my students who had learned to land a point in 30 seconds and leave the room with their dignity, not because they shouted, but because they were clear. The phone vibrated on the table. A new email, Beal, HOA, reminder, playback limited to content pre-cleared T4 or earlier. The period did its short, bossy work note. Bring USB, bring receipt, state pre-clear, sit. Position clicked off. I poured tea and held the mug with both hands until the heat turned from pain into comfort. I thumbed the stopwatch one more time and watched the seconds begin. Steady as rain on a roof. The house listened. Later, as the light drained from the kitchen window, I found the receipt again and read T4 out loud so the number would live in the room. When people say you want a show, they expect glitter. I planned to bring a clock. I checked my list against the folder spine and closed it. The latch noise of cardboard on cardboard sounded satisfying in the way that graded papers used to. Work done, at least for today. Before bed, I scrolled to Sophia's voicemail and played it once more, then deleted it. Some words you keep, some you let go. The proof would be cleaner without echoes. When the house was almost dark, I wrote the next day's to-do on a sticky and set it atop the folder like a gift tag. T-3, rehearse, call bank/grocer. Then I turned out the light. Mrs. Ruiz's voice lingered with the darkness. Chair can still cap you at 2 minutes total, even with exhibits. Good. I planned to be done by 1:53. I chose the hour before dusk because hard conversations do worse in the dark. The cul-de-sac held its breath. Garbage cans lined the curb like jurors who'd already made up their minds. I walked up their path with my hands out of my pockets and my voice ready to be small. Stewart opened fuss. Her eyes were apologetic, in the careful way that sells well from a distance. I said soft, not tonight. We can avoid more harm if we stop rehearsing in public. A saying shouldered in behind her, one hand high on the doorframe like a lifeguard about to blow a whistle. What do you want now? Clarity, I said, and a little quiet. He pushed the storm door wider, but not an invitation. We're busy. I'm aware, I said. So am I. I'll speak for 2 minutes tomorrow and sit. I'm here to say that. I'm not here to argue on your porch. Sophia's mouth trembled at the corners. Dad, we can meet with Pastor tomorrow, I repeated, in the room we all live in. Daniel's voice rose half a notch, just enough for the street. You need help. I need 2 minutes, I said. Family tension exchange, tomorrow, not tonight. Daniel, you're unstable, Thomas. This is unsafe. Me, if I were unsafe, you wouldn't need an audience. Sophia, Please don't make a scene. Me. I'm here to prevent one. A neighbor's front door clicked somewhere behind me. Wind chimes tattled on the breeze. I kept my stance like a teacher at a hallway conference. Feet planted, tone measured, hands still. I'm not coming inside, I added. You refuse my kitchen, I'll respect your threshold. Daniel stepped closer to the glass. Then leave. I will, I said, after I finish one sentence. He crossed his arms. Make it quick. Finger stacking tomorrow under the bylaw, I said. I've pre-cleared what I'll show. I'll stay within the cap, and then I'll sit. My phone buzzed in my pocket, just one banner tap of urgency. I glanced, T2, speakers must plug in 10 minutes early. I slipped the phone back, no more reaction than you give a classroom bell. Daniel tilted his head like a referee about to call a foul he already believed. You're fixated, he said louder. Neighbors are worried. I've heard, I said. Turbulence, Glenn stepped onto his porch, hands on the rail. Everything okay, Thomas? He called. Daniel answered for me, voice pitched to Carrie. He's confused, he said. Won't come in, won't accept help. I turned so I faced both of them without giving the yard my back. I'm clear, I said. I asked for 2 minutes tomorrow and I'm leaving now. Position hesitated, weight shifting on the boards. The porch light blinked on behind him, a stage with an undecided actor. See, Daniel said, to the neighborhood more than to me. Unstable, I said, and civil. He took one more step, close enough that I could see the tiny white thread at the seam of his coat where a button had been re-sewn. Leave, he said, and for a second his voice flattened into something that had nothing to do with optics and everything to do with control. Sophia's hand touched the door. Please, Dad, she said, we'll call you. You keep using future tense, I said. Tomorrow is present enough. This here out. Hurts. Standing outside is still standing. He flicked his eyes to the street, checking his audience. Go home, he ordered. And the word home carried accusation like a burr. You're making people uncomfortable. Comfort isn't the goal, I said. Clarity is. Glenn cleared his throat but didn't add a word. A second porch light came on down the block. Someone's dog collar jingled. The cul-de-sac collected all the sounds that happen when judgment gets bored. Daniel's smile returned, wide and polishable. You heard him, he told the air. He wants a show. A record, I said. He lowered his voice for me alone. You'll regret tomorrow. Then I'll regret it politely, I said. Angled. He put his palm against the door and leaned his weight. Not tonight, he said, louder now, for the houses. Not inside, not ever, until you accept help. Help doesn't arrive with a headline, I said. The storm door hissed. The wooden door behind it swung in a chalk-line arc and settled with a heavy, deliberate click. Daniel's voice came through the seam for the neighbors still pretending to mind their own business. Unstable, he announced like a verdict. I stood still a beat, so the room I wasn't in would know I was not rattled by rooms I wouldn't enter. The phone buzzed again in my pocket, a second reminder I didn't need. T2 hummed in my head like a countdown you could hold in your teeth. I turned and walked back down the path without hurry. On the sidewalk, Mrs. Nguyen had stepped half a foot past her mat, then retreated when the word unstable landed. Her door whispered shut, likely for the second time. At my driveway, the house looked the same as it had when I left. Lights where I'd left them, order where I'd placed it. The folder sat in the empty chair where I'd set it hours before. The stopwatch lay beside it. I put the watch in my pocket and didn't click it. Control slipping is a feeling. You don't feed it with pretend buttons. I poured a glass of water, drank half, and watched the front window darken from dusk to evening. Glenn's porch light stayed on across the street. He hadn't gone inside. He hadn't waved either. I 2 alarms into my phone. Plug in, 6:50 p.m. and remarks, 7 p.m. The little bells stacked like quiet promises. Unstable, Daniel had said to the street. Present, I said to my kitchen. I returned the glass to the sink, listened to the heater tick, and took the folder back out of the chair so the chair could be empty again. I would not give their word the power to occupy my house. Outside, a car door thumped shut. The street exhaled. I stood with my hand on the back of the empty chair and waited for the part of me that wanted to call someone to push through, then watched it fail. There would be witnesses tomorrow who hadn't chosen sides yet. I didn't need to collect them tonight on a sidewalk. We have opened the front door, let the cold air face me, and then closed it with care that made its own sound. Across the street, Glenn lifted a hand halfway and paused, undecided. The porch light trapped him in that halfway gesture. He didn't commit. The house ticked, like it had learned my rehearsal by heart. The stopwatch lay face up, steady as a second hand in a school clock. I breathed once and started the cadence again. Bylaw, exhibits, sit, when the phone buzzed against the table hard enough to nudge the printout. "Beal?" I said, answering. "Wildfires?" he said, voice carrying the mild irritation of a man hurting neighbors. "We've got a large turnout tomorrow. Public comments cut to 90 seconds. Playback at the chair's discretion." "Understood," I said. "Blackmail, you'll be expected to plug in 10 minutes early," he added. "If playback delays, we'll move on." "I'll be early," I said, "and brief." He cleared his throat. "Keep it civil." "I intend to." Silence stretched long enough to feel like a warning. Then the line clicked. He'd hung up first. I set the phone down. The stopwatch looked at me without blinking. Heart, pulse. "They're shrinking the clock. I'll sharpen the point." I trimmed the words out loud. Bylaw 4.3 allows rebuttal. Exhibit A, screenshot. Exhibit B, 148 video. Exhibit C, attestations queued, organization verified by volunteer log. Thank you. I cut my own favorite line and let Franklin survive in my head rather than out loud. The phone buzzed again. Different number. "Assistant manager," she said, apologetic already. "Our letter won't print until the 11th. Compliance is behind." "Thank you for calling," I said. "If asked, can you verify in person that I handle my transactions without issue?" "Yes, I'll be at the desk after lunch tomorrow. We can confirm verbally." "That's enough," I said. "I appreciate the straight line. A compa. I wrote on a sticky, "Bank, in-person verify if asked." I stuck it to the folder's inside flap like a quiet amendment. The kettle hissed. I poured and burned my thumb slightly on the mug, enough to pay attention, not enough to make a story. Pastor Jennings had posted a graphic with a warm font. "Safety starts at home. Let's care for our elders with wisdom and privacy." Comments accumulated like snow. Sophia shared it with a caption, "Please pray." Hearts and praying hands stacked under her name. "O Core Lit." Sophia, "Please skip the meeting. Talk with us privately." Me, "Private ended when the rumor went public." Interceptions. "This isn't rumor, it's concern. Concern to the room and let it meet facts." Sophia, "Dad, please." "Truth needs 90 seconds, I'll give it 89. Airborne slid over the exchange like a curtain. T1, media window closed. Arrived 10 minutes early. I let it sit there and do its little bossy pulse. The countdown had manners I could live with. Taya put the mug down and tried the run again. Bylaw 4.3 allows rebuttal. Exhibit A screenshot, time stamped. Exhibit B video playback under 2 minutes. Exhibit C letters queued, volunteer log signed. Bank available to verify in person. Thank you. 90 seconds has a sound when it's full grown. You can hear where to breathe. I trimmed one more phrase and felt the speech drop into its final shape like a drawer that closes clean for the first time. The phone vibrated. Daniel, "Pastor's asking for grace. Show some." Me, "Grace has room for evidence." Daniel, "You're making a scene." Me, "Tomorrow is a record, not a scene." I muted the thread before the dots could gather into more. From the window I could see the cul-de-sac going dark early, the way January does. A wind made a chime knock once and stop. The kitchen felt like a classroom after the bell. Furniture waiting for whoever needed to learn something next. The phone rang again. Unknown number. I let it go and listened to the voicemail preview without opening it. Another neighbor who just wanted to check in the warm, careful tone people use when they hope you'll let them off the hook for not taking a side. The laptop chimed once more. The pastor's post gained a comment from Daniel's cousin. "Guardianship is love." It read like a yard sign. Undermine the laptop, some light you snuff on purpose. The stopwatch still faced me, precise and loyal. I flipped it over so the table could look at a blank back instead of numbers. The click sounded louder than it should have. Family tension exchange text. "Please skip the meeting." Me, "Private ended when you made it public." Sophia, We can fix this quietly. Me. Quiet doesn't make truth smaller. It makes it easier to ignore. Sophia, then at least don't play the video. Me. I pre-cleared. I'll follow the rules. I walked the 2 steps to the chair where the folder sat and pressed my palm to its cover. It was warm from the room, ordinary and steady. The empty chair held it like it had been saving that spot all week. Another email landed from Beal. HOA. Reminder. Public comments, 90 seconds. Playback at chair's discretion. Speakers who miss pre-clear will not plug in. I didn't need the words. The tone did the work. I added one more line to my sticky. State pre-clear. Accept chair's ruling. Sit. Outside, someone's car started and died, then started again. On the pastor's page, the praying hands multiplied. The optics wanted their inches. They could have them. I would bring my 90 seconds and a mirror. I muted the phone entirely and set it down like a small animal you don't want to startle. The house quieted in gratitude. I looked at the black back of the stopwatch and felt the pull to flip it over, to make the seconds behave where I could see them. I let the pull pass. I sharpened a pencil instead. If playback didn't run, I would still be legible. The phone blinked one more time without sound. I didn't check who it was. I stared at the muted screen and the question the day had been trying to ask finally settled, heavy and simple. Will the chair let the exhibits run? I didn't answer it. I let the question hang in the quiet, where tomorrow would have to hear it. I arrived 10 minutes early as instructed. The hall hummed with the kind of talk that believes itself generous. Beal tapped his mic, eyes on a clipboard. Available. Public comments are capped at 90 seconds, he said. Playback at the chair's discretion. Keep it civil. I will, I said, already at the side table, USB in hand. Mrs. Ruiz nodded from the clerk's seat and slid the cable toward me. Pre-cleared, she murmured. I'll state it, I said and plugged in. Franklin stepped to the aisle behind me, hands folded, stance like a choirman who knows where the downbeat sits. 2 minutes or less, he said low. If it turns ugly, unleashed, you sit, I finished. I'll be legible. We waded through 2 fence complaints and 1 theatrical pothole lament. Beal lifted a palm. Thomas Grayson. Older on the lectern, not to show, but to steady. Bylaw 4.3 allows a member rebuttal with exhibits. Pre-cleared T4. I'll keep within 90 seconds. I inhaled once. Exhibit A is a brief video. It clarifies the candle and who left it lit. Someone coughed. A chair squeaked. I nodded to Mrs. Ruiz. The projector blinked alive. Portable screen, my kitchen window glowing. Sophia in her coat, purse already on her shoulder, her hands sweeping the counter once. She exits frame. The camera pans. On the counter, a taper candle burns, flame steady. In the corner, a small-time overlay sits like a stamp. No music, no edit. I let it run for 10 clean seconds. Then I said, play the end. Mrs. Ruiz jumped the slider. Sophia re-enters minutes later, glances at the candle, hesitates, then leaves again. The flame keeps its small job until the frame ends. Family tension exchange. On mic in room. Daniel from the seats. Out of context. Me. Context doesn't blow out flames. Sophia small. Dad. Me. Paper keeps blood honest. So does playback. Beal lifted 2 fingers. Mr. Grayson, keep your remarks to the exhibit. Done, I said. Exhibit B, if permitted, is a screenshot dated the morning after Christmas. Caption, family first. I won't display it to respect the 1 playback rule. It is available for the record. I also have neutral attestations queued and a signed volunteer log. The bank will verify in person if asked. That's my time. The lectern timer light slipped from green to everything I am, fits in breath lengths. That's enough. I stepped back. Franklin rose behind me without fanfare. Moral witness, he said, voice steady. I'm Mr. Franklin, retired principal. I stand to attest that Mr. Grayson tutors my grandson weekly and arrives prepared. I advised him to keep this civil and brief. He has. Beal nodded. Thank you. Response? Daniel stood, smoothing his jacket like a man who wants his hands to look busy. Concern isn't slander, he said. A single video shows a candle left burning, Franklin said, not moving. Facts first. Pastor Jennings rose halfway, then fully. I posted about safety, he said, eyes on the mic, not on me. I should have named rumor when I saw it. Mr. Grayson, that was my error. Sophia stood slowly. Her mouth opened and closed once before any sound arrived. She looked at the screen, then at the floor, then at me. I'm sorry, Dad. The words weren't loud, but the room heard them the way it hears a dropped plate. Beale turned to Daniel. Sir? Daniel's jaw worked. We misread. I retract the word unsafe as applied to Mr. Grayson's house. The room's temperature shifted. Tiny, real. Paper plates rustled in the back. Mrs. Nguyen's hand came to her throat. Glenn's hat brim tilted up. A neighbor near the aisle, one of the women from the potluck, said, "Good," under her breath, and the syllable carried. Beale cleared will reflect that. Mr. Grayson pre-cleared a video exhibit, which was played, and that prior assertions have been retracted by the party who made them. Let's keep our comments precise going forward. Daniel tried again. We only wanted. You wanted control, I said, voice even. I want a record. I let the line live and didn't add spice. He swallowed. His eyes flicked to Pastor Jennings, to Sophia, to the screen now idling on its blue rectangle. He sat. Beale looked back to me. Anything further within your 90 seconds? I shook my head. No, sir, thank you. The timer dot turned red. I stepped away from the mic without trying to steal a last second. Franklin's hand brushed my shoulder once. Approval given like a grade you earned. Pastor Jennings took one more step toward the aisle. Mr. Grayson, he said, voice on the record now. I apologize for my post. I'll add a correction tonight. Day the room rather than me. I'm sorry, she said again, firmer. We should not have pressured him at Christmas. We were wrong. Beale nodded to the clerk. Noted. He rapped the gavel. Next item. I unplugged the USB, capped it with a small click, and put it in my pocket. The room buzzed the way rooms do when they've replaced a picture with a fact. Daniel drifted into my periphery, the brightness gone from his face. He spoke low. We'll talk. We will, I said. On paper. He winced like a man stepping on a tack he'd left for someone else. I turned to leave. Glenn met me at the aisle with a two-finger salute. Mrs. Nguyen gave a small nod that meant more than clapping. At the door, Franklin leaned in. You landed it. I left 4 seconds in the air, I said. You left a point in the room, he said, and smiled with his eyes. He stepped into the, not lighter exactly, but set. Morning settled on the kitchen like a verdict no one argued with. I opened the HOA site and refreshed until the heading changed. Time minutes posted, January 11, 9:14 a.m. The page showed what I needed it to show. Exhibit played, unsafe, retracted, apology entered. I didn't scroll for comments. I let the timestamp do the talking. Heart pulse, justice is quiet when it's written down. The phone rang. Pastor Jennings, he said. Correction posted. I named rumor and removed my post. I'm sorry for adding weight where there was already enough. Thank you, I said. I'll keep my part as dull as paper. Dit's the best kind, he said, and hung up before the conversation could sour into grace as performance. I sent Franklin a single line, minutes up. He replied with a dot and a thumbs up, the punctuation of a man who grades with restraint. I closed the laptop and stood a moment with the house the way it likes to be, tidy, competent, bored by drama. The folder sat in the empty chair. I lifted it, felt its weight change meaning, and pressed the spine closed until the cardboard clicked. On the shelf above the desk, with tax files, warranties, and the small box with Laura's recipe cards, the folder took its place. The empty chair became a chair again. The house key went back in the bowl by the door. Metal on ceramic, ordinary, which is to say, earned. A call from the bank rolled in. The assistant manager. Our letter prints at noon. We can verify in person any time. Appreciated, I said. If asked, we'll point to you, not a PDF. Raj from the grocery left a voicemail. Note ready by the register. No rush. I saved it, not because I needed it, but because systems work when people do. A car idled long enough to suggest someone arguing with their day. When the knock came, it was gentle in the way a salesman's is. Daniel stood at the sidewalk, hands visible, voice lowered for the neighbor's benefit. "Thomas," he said, "we should talk." "We will," I said, in writing. He glanced past me at the quiet hole where outrage could have lived. "No need to be formal." "Formality kept last night from turning into theater," I said. "It's our new rule." Sophia joined him, scarf pulled tight. "We accept the apology, being on the record," she said, eyes on my shoulder instead of my face. "We won't push anything further." "Good," I said. "Here are the terms going forward." I held up a palm and counted on fingers, old classroom habit. 1. Requests in writing, email is fine. 2. No unannounced checks. 3. No locksmiths. Consent is a bright line. 4. If you need to raise a concern, bring a specific and bring yourself. Defiance tried to smile. "You're making this rigid, aching it legible." Family tension exchange. Porch. "Daniel, we can stop by though, right? Just to see you?" "Me, ask first." Sophia, "What if it's urgent?" "Me, if it needs consent, ask. If it needs a locksmith, don't." Daniel, "And the video?" "Me, it lives in the minutes now." He shifted on his shoes. "We meant well," he said, softer than I'd ever heard it. "Intent sits behind impact," I said. "Stay with the record." Sophia looked past me into the hall, like she might spot a version of me that would fold. "We'll email," she said finally. "I'll answer," I said. "On paper." I didn't offer coffee. They didn't ask to come in. The wind moved a chime down the block and then left it alone. Back inside, I opened a new message addressed to both of them and typed the terms we'd just spoken, bullet points the way you send instructions to students on the first day. I attached a link to the minutes. No color, no flourish. Send. Then a short note to Pastor, "Thanks for the correction," and to Franklin, "Dinner on me when this stops being interesting," which he would ignore until schedules behaved. Browser tab with the minutes still glowed. January 11, 9:14 a.m. I let my eyes rest there for one more breath, not to savor, but to memorize where this part of the story lived. If anyone wanted to misremember later, they'd have to work against the clock on the page. I wiped the kitchen table with a damp cloth, not because it needed it, but because work likes something to do with its hands after the work is finished. The crease from the contract, there if you knew where to look, felt shallower under my palm. The phone buzzed on silent. A new email. Subject, terms. One line from Sophia. Received. Under it, Daniel's reply, "We'll keep it written." I added a rule to my inbox to funnel their messages into a folder marked Family Correspondence. Future me would thank me for making the river run where it ought to. I returned the key to the bowl again, not because it had moved, but because repetition makes rules into habits. Outside, a delivery truck clattered past without stopping. Noise passed through. The house remained a house. As I reopened the browser once more, skimmed the minutes to the line that mattered, exhibit noted, retraction entered, and closed the tab. Final click, no flourish. At the door, I put a small card, eye level for myself, requests in writing, consent required. Not for them, for me, so I wouldn't be tempted to let just a second become a policy. I didn't smile. I didn't rehearse. I picked up the mail from the floor and set the circulars aside for recycling. The chair at the table sat empty the way furniture sits when it knows its job is to be there, not to be filled. I texted Eli back about his nephew's sessions. Tuesday at 4 would work. Something useful, something spare. Then I spoke the rule once, so the room could hear it and hold me to it. From now on, requests in writing, no locksmiths, no surprises. Quiet follows like a reward you earn, not a gift. I learned that patience with paper beats noise, that if you hold your breath steady, even a wound from Christmas dinner closes on the seam. I hang my coat, write one clean line for tomorrow, and let the house key drop home. Ceramic bowl, one bright, final click. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Type 1 if you resonate with this story.